Well, welcome back to Open to Truth, a podcast all about exploring big ideas and discovering truth together. My name's Clint.
Hi, I'm Tony. Welcome back.
And yeah, just in the past couple months, I think we're recording this at the end of November, and there are no shortage of different moral questions being thrown around. How should you vote? Should you put up a political sign?
Should you go to Thanksgiving dinner with your family?
And remain, do you mean just with COVID?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to do an episode where we kind of take a step back from all of those individual minutia questions of morality and just get a little bit more clear on what is the ethic, the moral system that I'm bringing to the table that I kind of tacitly or unconsciously use to
because we're
figure
all
out what to
using
do.
one.
I think we are,
Probably,
yeah.
unless you're just a complete sociopath that's just literally acting randomly every day.
Right.
You probably have some ethic that you
You have
operate.
some software
Yeah.
that you've downloaded at some point,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of running on autopilot for
What's
the most
right,
part.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
How ought I act? Yeah.
The goal of the philosophical reflective life is to not just be on autopilot, but to kind of be thinking about, oh wait, what should I do? Not just kind of doing what immediately comes to mind or something.
Yeah.
So I'd like to head to the lab for a second and perform a little bit of a thought experiment.
Great. Love it here in the lab. What experiment are we doing today?
Yeah, new little sound effect.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the experiment. Imagine you're on the Pacific Coast Highway, kind of this beautiful, scenic patch of road where you're overlooking the ocean. It's gorgeous, but, it's a pretty tight little road. If you were to go off that flimsy little guardrail, I mean, there's rocks and
Coastal.
water below.
There's a big cliff, big drop. Yeah.
And to your right is another rock face, like a big wall of rock. Narrow roads, but it's a beautiful day. You're enjoying the scenery. And you're not being negligent. You're a careful driver, but also calm and just having a good time.
Okay.
You're driving along.
Got the windows down. I'm enjoying the...
You're in a Hummer. You're in a big old tank of a vehicle.
Okay.
And to your horror, you come to a little curve in the road, like those mountain roads do.
Yep, an S-bend.
You're approaching the S-bend, and you see 3 motorcyclists approach you on the road. 2 of the motorcyclists are in your lane.
What are they doing?
They ought not be there.
No, they shouldn't be.
And their friend, another motorcyclist, is in the other lane. And they're totally like in their motorcycle garb. They've got their helmets on. You can't tell anything about them, but you can tell like they are not looking at you.
They're joking around.
They don't know that they are violating any laws, or they're just kind of laughing and
having a good afternoon,
just like you are, but being a little more negligent.
Yeah.
And when you notice this, I mean, they're flying around the corner. You don't have time to put on the brakes and avoid this. They're not paying attention. They are going to run into you. But luckily, what's cool about the thought experiment in philosophy is that we can add magic
It's
to
all
the
happening
scenario.
in our minds.
So I can just say, in this scenario, in your Hummer, you have a button that can stop time.
Love it. Yep.
And now you can just kind of sit here indefinitely in paused time.
Like clock stoppers.
And think about the ethical question before you. And that is, what should you do?
What should I do?
What should you do? The fundamental ethical question,
Not
right?
what would I do?
Not what would you do? Because what I would do in that scenario is freak out and like try to swerve, and I'd hit all 3 of them. And it'd be a total
Worst choice possible.
Total disaster.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I have stopped time. I can sit here and really deliberate about it as much as I can, and then make my decision, of which there are 3 that I'd like to offer.
Okay, 3 choices.
So crucially, you cannot like veer to the right. There's that rock face. So you would just kind of
There's
bounce
nowhere to
off
go.
it and
Yeah. Yeah.
So really, I can I can't split the difference and go between them. I'm in this big Hummer.
You're gonna hit something.
So option 1, stay in my lane and kill 2. Kill the 2 motorcyclists.
And they will crash into you.
Mm-hmm.
Die.
You will be unharmed in your Hummer. It's a big old vehicle.
Yep.
I could change lanes and hit the 1 motorcyclist in that lane. Or I could veer off hard to the left, careen over that thin little guardrail down to the watery rocks below.
Sacrifice your own life, save all three. And so, okay, but for this thought experiment, I don't have a family to think about or
No,
anything else
No.
to consider.
you really don't know anything about yourself.
Because that would change things, I think. For
you
me.
would be less likely to go over the edge.
Yeah, if I had,
Okay.
dependents
Okay.
that I had to consider.
Interesting. So, but you don't know anything about the motorcyclists or really about yourself. In
Don't know
this.
if they're good people, bad people.
Nope.
None of that. Generic riders.
Young, old, male, female, none of that.
What
It's just
should you
persons. Yeah.
Now, my gut says, do nothing. Stay in your lane. Part of the reason, though, is not necessarily because, well, part of it is, listen, they're breaking the rules and they knew the risks when they decided to swerve out of their lane. Like, if you're driving and you choose to drive in the lane that you're not designated to be driving in, you run the risk of collision. That's why we have lanes.
Yeah.
So presumably they understand that and they've adopted that risk. Furthermore, I would be concerned that if I switched lanes, one of them, in an attempt to avoid me, would also switch lanes.
No, that we can't bake that in.
Oh, we can't do that?
No, they're so distracted.
We can't do strategy for how they might react.
No, you're pretty confident that they will not change what they're doing because they don't even know you're there.
Okay, got it.
They're looking away.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the
No
question-
probability factoring of
All
what
right.
will they do.
That helps. That simplifies it
Yeah.
a little bit. A little less realistic, but still helpful.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and what we're doing with this, we're trying to tease out what your moral intuitions are.
I feel exposed.
How would you approach a moral situation?
Because when I first heard this, first time I heard the thought experiment, I think about the virtuous man being the one who sacrifices his own life for the sake of others. So you should pull hard left, drive off the cliff, let all three of them live.
Greater love has no man than this.
Exactly.
Than to lay down his life for his friend.
That's right, just like our Lord.
The good Lord.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That does seem virtuous, yeah.
we tend to hold in high regard those who sacrifice their lives for the sake of others. In fact, we call them heroes often. Would it be heroic of me to end my own life for the sake of these three? And that's definitely the way I went when I first heard it. I think that's what you should do. Now, I don't know what's changed in my life. I feel a bit differently about it today.
Interesting. Yeah.
I feel like I might be justified staying in my lane, and their deaths are on them.
Okay.
How about you?
Well, let's just canvass the other option real quick. And it's, in fact, the one. So when I used to teach philosophy, I would give this as an experiment. And I did borrow it from my former professor, Heidi Malm. So if you're watching this, thanks, Dr. Malm. So the third option that most students choose is switching lanes and killing the one.
Really? I don't want to do that. He really doesn't deserve to die.
Yeah, but it's one. It's not two.
Yeah,
I'm just killing the one, and it's not me.
but that sucks for him. He's doing the right thing.
It does suck for him, but this is.
I would sooner kill myself than kill him. I would sooner go off the cliff.
Really? But you haven't. I mean.
Yeah, but he really hasn't. He's fine. You know, he hasn't done anything wrong. I'd feel terrible about killing him. Yeah.
So in any case, let's just kind of break down what what's going on with the three options.
Okay.
So if you stay in your lane and kill the two, what's going on with that reasoning is something to do with justice or fairness.
Yeah.
It's unfair for either myself or the guy in the other lane to bear any of the bad consequences of this because we were
weren't breaking
following the
rules.
traffic laws.
Yeah.
And we're not, and that view is not saying that violating a traffic law deserves death.
No.
But if someone is going to die,
It shouldn't be the people who are obeying the rules.
yeah.
It should be the renegades.
So what this is meant to elucidate is
Not a very gracious view.
No, but so what that's doing, what this thought experiment is trying to do, is for those folks that answer the question in that way, what it's showing you is that you think that morality is fundamentally backward looking. Mm-hmm. What matters most in how I answer the question, what should I do, is I look back in time and see if
What
there's
have I done?
what have I done, or is there anything about the world where I owe someone something, or someone has a right, or justice. Sometimes that word's used, obviously a lot in today's age.
Sure.
So that morality is backward looking. Now, for the option of switching lanes and killing the one, this is more in line with what's sometimes called consequentialism, or a morality is forward looking. I don't look at what's due somebody in the past. What I want to know is how will the world be moving forward? And I'd rather kill one than two.
Right.
And now you might wonder, what's the difference between killing yourself, or that one?
I do.
And we can get there in a moment for the third option. But the consequentialist is I definitely can't stay in my lane. More people will die if I do so.
Yeah.
Think of the fallout. I know we don't know much
the ripple effects
about them, but the fact is, it seems like for the most part, without knowing much at all, two people will have a greater fallout and negative consequences than the one.
Yeah.
Okay. The third option is like, no, it doesn't matter about forward looking or backward looking. What I need to do is inward looking.
Ooh.
Morality is fundamentally inward looking and becoming a certain type of person. So sometimes, now you did mention this the last time we talked about it, but not in this setting.
Oh no, I'm inconsistent.
And most of the students that choose this third option say something like this: I could never live with myself if I killed someone. I don't want to become the type of person that is a killer.
Are you a killer though?
That's too strong,
it's a
probably.
bit different.
Yeah.
Let die.
But
like
something that morality has to do with cultivating virtue, cultivating a character.
Yeah.
So the three are
preferring others,
backward looking, forward looking, inward looking. And this experiment does not tell you a right answer.
No.
I know you might feel like your answer is correct, but what it does is it exposes what is that software that is running in your mind when you approach an ethical situation.
What's your software?
Well,
what do you think you should do, Mr. Philosopher? It's easy to sit here and in your lab and pose experiments.
Yeah, take off the white coat.
Yeah. Subject yourself.
Boy, I think that you ought to do either switch.
Oh, so lame. You ought to do one of the three things.
No. No, I don't think you should stay in your lane.
Oh, that's the one thing you don't think you should do.
Yeah, I think you should switch lanes or go over the edge.
Okay.
I think those are morally equivalent in this case.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Well, I would not go over the edge.
You wouldn't do that.
No, I'm not. No, and according to that maybe virtue ethical position, you could say that I am not of strong enough moral character to make the choice.
Yeah, you're a weak man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know what you, audience member, thought as you heard that, where you land. But the breakdown that normally has come out is like 60% or so are the switch lane, kill the one. 30 or so percent stay in the lane and kill the two. And the other 10%. Yeah.
Wow. Maybe I've become less virtuous over time. Since last time I would have gone over the edge, or thought I should have gone over the edge.
Let's just dial into that a little bit more so we kind of understand what that perspective is saying. The heroic or heroism. Can you say more about that? Like, what was intriguing to you about it?
Well, I don't know. You think about a hero in any kind of a crisis, like a war or some kind of safety situation. The hero is the one who jumps on the grenade so that his squad doesn't get blown up. You know, that motif of the sacrificial hero is littered all through our culture. We love that. We celebrate that all the time in movies, stories, whatever. It's what the Christ has done. You know, like he's laid down his own life for the sake of others. So that's just sort of the pinnacle of virtue, the self-sacrifice. So to finish, the only way I can think about that being not virtuous or foolhardy is if I a world where I have dependence and I have more to consider than my own life. But otherwise, preferring the lives of others to my own life seems virtuous to me.
Why?
It's a brute.
It's a brute seeming.
It just seems that way to me.
Wow.
I ought to prefer others. Selflessness as opposed to selfishness.
So then do you want to modify your answer? Should you?
Yeah, but the only reason I want to do it is so that I appear virtuous on camera. You know,
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, as you first told me the experiment, my gut was, I'm probably justified staying in my lane. I should do that. But then there's this inner voice saying, no, mate, you really should go over the edge. And then there's the voice that goes, I don't want to go over the edge. Well, you should.
Well, no, that's fine. You're allowed
Is that
to.
okay?
Yeah, because the question is, what should you do?
The
Not
inner battle?
Not would you,
Okay.
or are you of the right moral fiber?
Okay. Then I have low moral fiber, but there is a still small voice of conscience in me that tells me I ought to go over the edge.
Now, I didn't plan on going in this direction, but now I kind of want to tease out one of my favorite topics in ethics is, this might be too nerdy for this podcast, but super erogation.
Sure, go for it.
And it's the idea of going over and above the line, the call of duty.
Yeah.
And so when you're describing the heroic deed, when particularly like the grenade example is fantastic.
Yeah.
What did the person who did that, did they have to do that, or ought they have done it? Should they have done it from a ethical perspective, or was it merely like heroic, good but not required? Are the others who opted not to do that morally blameworthy? And again, imagine in their scenario they each had a little time stopper thing,
Each
because
of
of
them could
course, like
choose to
in the
jump in.
moment,
Yeah.
we can't like get.
You're probably going to act on instinct, whatever that happens to be. You're not going to
Yep.
do a
Yeah,
big
we don't want to
inward inventory.
hold anyone too hard to account in any of this.
Yeah.
But just when we're taking a step back, thinking about the deep, fundamental ethical truths going on here,
So,
there's this category of action that I'd like to keep protected, and that's things that are morally good but not morally required. Otherwise, I just think the standard of ethics just gets shot through the roof.
what do you mean by that? Like,
If everything that's heroic or saintly suddenly becomes the standard for what's morally required, then you get into the situation where most people all the time are.
Everybody falls short all the time.
Now, some might say,
There are none who are good. No, not one.
for all have sinned and fallen short.
Yeah.
But that's not saying that at every single moment everyone's falling short.
Right.
Which if you made the standard for proper ethical behavior heroicism or saintliness, you would.
So you
Which is why I opted for both driving off the cliff or the one are equal in their moral requirement.
Yeah. You
Now,
ought to do one of those, but one of them is more heroic.
It might be more morally valuable to do the heroic one. I would get an increased amount of moral praise from my moral community were I to do so.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to a requirement, like what I ought to do on pain of being immoral,
Yeah. Minimally, you need to switch lanes. You ought to switch lanes.
I don't know though. So some
Yeah.
have pushed back and said there are no acts that are supererogatory. There's no such thing as going above and beyond the call of duty. Whatever is the highest good and whatever is most valuable,
That is the call of duty.
let's call that the best thing, and you should be trying to do that.
The most good you can do.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that plays into it a little bit. The question of, is there a category of actions that are...
I would live very differently. I don't go through life thinking about what's the most good I could do. Maybe I'm terrible.
Yeah,
I'm just coming to terms with it.
Peter Singer would think you are
Yeah.
morally deficient.
Yeah. Because I don't know. It seems like there are some acts that it's not obvious that one is better than the other. But on that view, okay, do I have vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream? One of those is actually morally required of me because it happens to be better, or they're still morally neutral acts.
Maybe they are. Maybe they would. Well, it again depends on your rubric. Do you mean like for consequences?
Right.
I don't know. That's one of the problems with
consequentialism. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, if you want to truncate it a little bit and just say morality is that which is other directed, and so we can kind of put aside ice cream flavors and what color to paint my wall,
right?
Just that toward which I'm oriented toward how should I treat other people. Well, even the going off the cliff one counts in that discussion because I'm treating other people, choosing not to run into them with my vehicle.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps. What are you chewing on?
Chewing on Peter Singer.
Yeah. Are you just wrestling with whether you are...
I'm just wrestling with how bankrupt I am.
Morally. Well, like, tell me, let us know, let the audience know what's going on here.
I'll try to process verbally for you all. Instead of just retreating to the mental realm. It just seems like there are so many good things I could do that I go through life thinking about them as being above and beyond, not required of me, but they would be good to do. So I could, right now, go out into the store and try to find someone who looks like they need money and has less money than me and give them some of my money. I could do that. I could go and buy lunch I could spend every day until I went broke buying lunch for any homeless person I could find. I don't do that.
Well, I think that, and just to be really clear, and again, we're not trying to like solve the question of which of these is correct. We can't do that in this podcast. But what's becoming clear to me as you describe that, you're very right about that, is, I mean, you didn't choose that of the three for a reason. You know, you're kind of like picking apart this going into one lane.
Right.
That wasn't one that you were tempted by.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, which is now evidenced by like your daily practice of, it's just not how I'm oriented to the world. I'm not always trying to produce the most good in the world.
But shouldn't I be? Shouldn't I be trying to produce the most good in the world?
Well, no, not according to the justice folks.
What should I be doing according to justice folks?
Well, so here's something. Let's just throw it. Here's a case study of like consequentialism versus deontology, or the backward-looking version. So one of the main arguments for capital punishment, let's say, from the deontological side, the backwards-looking, is, look, some crimes you just deserve to die for. Some of them are so heinous that you deserve it. And in fact, like all the studies show, like it's way more expensive to do the death penalty than it is life in prison.
That's shocking.
Yeah, because of how much
Pun intended.
Oh my gosh, dude. Pun intended.
Sorry.
Oh no. No, it's because of how much litigation is involved with the death penalty,
right,
and higher security prisons and stuff. So it's like, I think it was 8 or 9 more multiplier expensive for death penalty.
Wow. See, I don't like that. I reject it. That there are some crimes that you ought to die for.
Okay.
I don't like.
But I'm using it to illustrate the idea that from that camp, there are reasons to not do the most good, which would be maybe like save money. We could use that other places and help other people with it.
Right.
But like, we have to enact justice here. Like, they deserve this thing.
Yeah. But aren't they ultimately saying...
But you picked that. That was your initial reaction, was to pick the backward-looking morality.
Yeah.
Now, you disagree that a crime warrants...
Yeah. Isn't that just
punishment.
another way of saying it would be better for us to punish this crime? Like, the most good we can do is not save those resources and divert them somewhere else. The most good we can do is punish this person who needs to be punished.
No, you're not going to like this answer.
Okay.
It's going to be annoying, and you probably won't like it either, audience, but there is a difference here between good and right.
I don't like it.
Okay.
You're right. I hate that.
So what we've been talking about so far is rightness and wrongness. What is or correct or incorrect.
Okay.
The right thing to do versus what is good. That is not always the same thing. Now, the consequentialist who wants to do the most good in the world are conflating those two. And I don't mean to be pejorative by that. Like, just that they're saying that's one and the same thing.
Yeah.
So they would maybe reject a little bit that they ever would come apart in some way.
Right. Okay.
The right thing is just whatever is good.
Yeah.
And the backward looking people are like, no. It's not just about future good. There might be right things to do that don't always lead to the
Debts
most
that
good.
need to be paid. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What if if you borrowed money, what if you could get away with it? You don't really care about that friendship, and you can use that money to buy a new TV.
Or give it to the poor.
Yeah. Yeah. A little Robin Hood scenario.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
That's good, but it's not right.
according to the backward looking
Got it.
folks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm not trying to solve the debate between, let's call it virtue ethics inward, consequentialism forward, and deontology backward. These have been kind of at play throughout the history of ethics and philosophy. And each have pretty good reasons for them, which is why it's currently relatively unsolved. But I think what it does, what I want, like, here's the value proposition for you listening.
Great. How does it change my life?
Because what you can do is when someone gives you a moral admonition, like you should be doing this, or you read something where there's moral claims involved, you can kind of use this mountain road thought experiment and the 3 rubrics, forward, backward, inward, and just have a better idea of like where that person is coming from. You don't have to immediately feel defensive, like, oh, that's not what I would do, or what I like. Oh, they're coming at this with a whole different paradigm of what morality is all about.
Yeah.
And it can help you understand where they're coming from, have more charitable discussions. And I do want to be clear. I do think there's a truth to the matter. One of them is largely correct. I don't think they can all be true at the same time because they lead to they lead to different answers.
But you don't claim to know which one's true?
I don't.
And which lens are you using in life? You said 2 were permissible, consequentialism and virtue ethics. You reject deontology.
Oh my gosh, I'm not ready to
Okay. You're not ready to go on record.
I'm not ready.
Rejecting deontology.
I think I probably am a consequentialist.
Wow.
Just right now, as I sit here.
No, you're honest. I appreciate
I'm leaning in that direction.
Okay. Must be tough to make decisions.
Do you want me to share my reason, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can do it succinctly.
I think I can.
Okay.
Just real quick, and some of my philosophy buddies that are watching this probably could ream me over the coals for this, but I think if I really try sometimes to define what a right is or a duty, I have trouble sometimes defining that in a way that avoids a consequentialist language.
Oh, okay.
Like what it means for someone to have a right. If you follow that down the rabbit hole, it's hard not to point out like, oh, but then this would happen. Oh, well now you mentioned the consequence.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's been, what is the grounding of a right? And unless you go with some kind of natural rights or like endowed by their creator rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Unless it's like that right is bankrolled in some way by a deity or some kind of natural law, then I think you're forced into the consequences model to support what why rights exist.
Okay.
So in my best times, I do hold to this. That's where I'm at right now, is wrestling with, do things have rights inherently or from God versus do we just really use the language of rights that are bankrolled by the consequentialist framework.
If you unmask
I don't know if that was too kind of
No, that's helpful.
heady, but
No, I like hearing where you're coming from.
yeah.
That's good.
And then just real quick, and where are you right now with it? What are you? You're a virtue ethicist.
I think I'm a virtue ethicist.
Fundamentally, the moral story is about what's going on in here.
I think so. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
come what may.
Yeah. Wow. Yep. I think so. Because I think if everyone was a virtue ethicist, I'm using consequence language there.
I'm worried about this.
Yeah, I just caught myself.
Yeah.
Then things would be better.
Well, yeah. Let me just real quick as we wrap up.
Yeah.
Poke holes in the other views too.
Please.
So what's traditionally been worrisome about the virtue ethics position, the third one of going off the rails, or the hero, is that they're so how do I put it? It feels like the virtue ethicist is just kind of helping itself to some categories that aren't robust enough on their own. So sometimes the decision procedure in virtue ethics has been the right thing to do is what the virtuous person would do, or what the hero would do, or what would Jesus do?
Yep.
That's a virtue ethics kind of mentality. And you might wonder, like, well, why did the virtuous person do what they did? Like, what were their reasons for doing that? Mm-hmm. And it seems like you need to give either a consequentialist or deontological answer. Because it's now circular to say, oh, well, the virtuous person did that because it was heroic. Oh, well, wait a minute. What does it mean to be a hero? Well, that's not the virtuous person. That's what the virtuous person does.
Isn't there something that smacks of the Euthyphro dilemma to me,
Yes.
though?
But that is traditionally cast as a defeating dilemma. Both are not good. Okay.
I'm not concerned about the Euthyphro dilemma. Because at least on that story, the Euthyphro dilemma, if you're not familiar, does God do something because it's good, or is it good because God does it? Mm-hmm. And at least the Craigian answer is God does what he does because he is good. It's just that God's character and goodness are two ways of saying the same thing.
Okay, fine. But now in the ethical discussion, the very question is, what does it mean to be good?
To be
That
similar
question
in
is-
character to God.
Yeah.
That there's a plumb line that you're approximating morally, and that plumb line is the character of God. We could call that goodness. And my job as a human is to, as
But
best I can, approximate that.
And is that character of God one that is staying in his lane, switching, or going over the cliff?
He goes over the cliff,
Okay, now wait a minute.
as evidenced in Christ.
But what was the reason that Christ did that? I just want to know why. Like, what was the reason for going over the cliff?
It's a loving act. Am I being tautologist? Is that just like not helpful to say?
No, so this is forever the problem with the virtue ethics answer, is that they'll find a new word,
Yeah.
a new moral term to support the previous one ad infinitum. Well, it was
Right.
loving. Oh, because it was courageous. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're just helping yourself to new moral terms, and you never get to a bedrock purposely because it's meant to be different from the other two views.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like baseless. There's no ground to it.
Right. Because yeah. I see what you mean about accidentally tiptoeing into consequentialism.
Because
each time.
whatever the reasons are for the virtuous person to do what they did, that is what should be the ground of morality. Not just that the virtuous person did them.
Yeah.
I want to be like the hero. That's great. Well, why did the hero do what he did? Because it was heroic or virtuous or courageous. Oh, wait. No.
No. It's
can't-
more like because more people would live, and that's a consequence.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But, I mean, again, for all these objections, this is what philosophers do. We poke holes in these little arguments, and rejoinders happen throughout the centuries, and
Yeah.
it's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I would love to do a straw poll of our audience. Please write in.
I would love that.
I would like to know what
Well, write in the
percentage.
comments, yeah.
Yeah. What do we have here? Are you guys mostly virtue ethicists?
Yeah.
Are you switching lanes? Are
you
you going off the cliff?
edge?
Or are you're hitting
Staying
these
in
two?
your lane.
I would love to find out.
Yeah.
You can write in at opentotruthpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, like.
There's new
and
content
leave a
coming
comment.
out multiple times a week. So, yeah. Love having you on board. Enjoy future episodes, and thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Stay curious. It's a weird ending, but okay. Enjoy future episodes.